Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dark Rhino Security Confidential. Today, we have Laura Tich joining us. Laura comes to us all the way from Kenya. She is been gracious enough to take time out of her day and come on to this podcast. I think we're like 6 or 12 hours apart, something like that. It's a very long distance. But Laura has a great background and a lot of experience in cyber. Laura has been nominated as the Cybersecurity Woman of the Year. She is one of the nominees. She is the founder of She Who Hacks KE, right? And she's an ethical hacker. She has been driving the subject of not just cybersecurity, but computation and using digital media in her native land and bringing a lot of issues to light. She's a wonderful person. We're honored to have you. Laura, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you so much, Manoj, for inviting me to join the podcast.
Uh, I'm glad you could make it. So, Laura, I know you're one of the nominees for Cybersecurity Woman of the Year, and what an honor. But what do you, can you share with us what led to that nomination a little bit?
Yeah, so I think what led to the nomination is the work I've been doing in Kenya, and that is we founded She Hacks Kenya alongside myself and Evelyn Kilel in 2016. And what we saw was there was a lack of women representation in the information security industry in Kenya. And so we created a platform for women to interact and to learn and to grow skills together, and that I think that is what has led us to this point, because we've managed to grow tremendously in the past. It's going to be 5 years in August, so we've managed to have close to 400 women in Kenya joining the information security industry, and so I think that's very impressive, for not
That's
just for
very
She Hacks
impressive.
but also for the women. Yeah, yes. And yes, for me to be nominated, I think we've been recognized for the work we have done in Kenya. And currently, we also have a sister chapter in Zimbabwe called She Hacks Zimbabwe. So I think we're going global in a way.
That is fantastic. You know,
Yeah,
I guess it lives up to the motto that's behind you: "Don't be average, be awesome." That is,
yeah.
you're enabling women in Kenya, Zimbabwe, and as you grow to other African nations to really participate in this information security world. So, why information security? What drove you into that subject?
Yes, initially, I think when I was younger, I would watch movies, and any movie that had technology in it, especially hackers, really thrilled me. So when I joined college, I decided to pursue a bachelor's degree in applied computer science,
Okay.
and that was like yes, that was the beginning of my interest in cybersecurity. And when I didn't know where to start though when it comes to information security, so we had a boot camp at school, and that's when I got to learn the basics of Kali Linux, and that just inspired me to go with it. So initially it was the thrill of it, but eventually I think as time went by, I started seeing the impact that my work does to the society, because I've worked in the digital security space, that is providing skills and solutions for at-risk people all across Africa, mostly journalists and civil societies. So I think the impact that we make, be personally in information security, the impact I make in community in our society today is what motivates me to keep going. The other thing is we are embracing new technologies, and with these new technologies come new threats which require new solutions. So just the fact that I would sit down every day and try and come up with solutions for problems that is facing the people around me or technology users, that really inspires me and motivates me to keep doing what I'm doing.
That is that's fantastic. When we think of Kenya, a lot of people are not going to think about high technology. They're not going to think about a group of people that is making a big difference in digital space. Unfortunately, but you're changing
Yeah.
that, and I'm glad you're here to tell us a little bit about it. But what is do you see it as a nation state? What is Kenya doing to incubate high tech or to foster an environment where women can succeed, and others even in high tech can succeed?
Well, yeah, Manoj, you've just said it. Like when people think about Kenya, they don't think high-end technologies or cutting-edge technologies. And for sure, we don't have autonomous cars or even rockets that can ferry our billionaires in the country to space. But
Soon.
I think we've come up with yeah, soon. So I think in 2000, early 2000s, there was the advent of M-Pesa technology, which is our mobile banking platform, and that opened the way for more technologies to be embraced in Kenya today. So I read a report that stated that technology in Kenya has been growing by 23% annually since
Wow.
the beginning of the millennium. And you can actually see that because Nairobi has been termed the Silicon Savannah, and that is because a lot of startups are finding their way in to Nairobi. And these startups, they try and come up with solutions to problems that we specifically in Kenya and countries like ours face. One case in point, one example I would give is there's a startup called Brick that is
Okay.
providing solar powered routers. And that's important because we don't have electricity everywhere in the country. There are some areas in rural parts of the country that have no access to power supply. And so when you give them solar powered routers, it gives them an opportunity to access the internet just as the rest of us. So I think with time, we are going to get to a point where we have many more technologies that are solving problems that are specific to Kenya or problems that a lot of Kenyans face, especially in marginalized communities.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I had not heard of solar
Yeah,
powered routers, but it makes complete sense.
yeah,
It, and
yeah.
and I would imagine that in those disadvantaged communities, it could potentially be life changing because it exposes them to the whole world, essentially.
Yes, yeah.
So, in terms of exposure, when your organization, She Hacks KE, have you been developing your own resources? Are you offering boot camps? Are you offering programs or formalized training by which women can enter the information security world?
Well, yes, we are. That's the main aspect of She Hacks Kenya. We provide training, we provide resources to women or members of the community, but especially women because we've been marginalized for the longest time. And initially, before COVID, we used to try and hold monthly boot camps, physical boot camps. Um, but since the pandemic began and people started working remotely, then we have moved to virtual platforms, which makes it easier because of the logistics. We don't have to look for a space or food for people. So now we hold our boot camps twice a week, one for college students and another one for the general public. So yes, we have provided training and resources to women and other community members for free. We don't charge for any of our trainings or any of our resources.
Fantastic. And are you able to
Yeah.
offer certifications as well as part of She Hacks KE?
Not our own, but what we do is we partner with organizations such as Microsoft,
Okay.
and they give us discounts or they even give us free certifications for some of our women. So with that, we're able to provide certifications for the women. There's also where I am right now. It's called ICRAL Innovation Hub, which is the first cybersecurity innovation hub in in the country, in East Africa actually. And what they do is they have a program called the National Cybersecurity Training Program, NCSTP, and they invite
Okay.
people who want to learn cybersecurity. So they do 6 months of thorough training, and at the end, they try and get people into the job market as well.
One question that I had that came to mind was in Kenya, what on the cyber security threat side, what kind of threats are you seeing? What are you seeing businesses face there from a security risk, cybersecurity risk
Yeah,
perspective?
so the one thing that is common in Kenya and I think across the globe is layer 8 errors, and that's where social engineering comes in. I think also because 80% of the adult population use M-Pesa, which is the mobile money platforms, we get a lot of phishing and smishing attacks. So a lot of people trying to get unsuspecting users to send them money, and so that's one of the most common cyber threats that we have today. And also, when it comes to social engineering, this is also a threat, a big threat in Africa, because I am very sure that people have heard of the Sakawa boys, the Yahoo boys from West Africa, mostly in Nigeria and
Yep.
Ghana, or the Nigerian prince scam. So that is very, very common. It's common all across Africa. But the other thing that I think came about as a result of moving to virtual platforms or moving to working remotely due to COVID is compromise, people moving towards cloud technology. There's a lot of threats when it comes to misconfiguration of these platforms. So you will get
Yes.
that a lot of data breaches happen and other threats like that. So when people are moving towards virtual platform, people or organizations tend to overlook proper configurations, and they end up putting their sensitive data stored in their cloud platforms at risk. So that's one of the other threats that we face. Other threats also include uh, this is similar to mobile money, but banking as well, especially banks that still use legacy systems. It leaves them open to attacks, and that leaves accounts at personal, like people's accounts and their employees as well at risk. So there's a lot of threats that come with old technologies and new technologies as well.
Yeah, and hearing you describe it, it seems like vulnerability management is just as much an issue in Kenya as it is here in the United
Yeah.
States. A lot
Yes.
of what you've said applies here as well. So
Yeah.
it's it's a common problem. Do you think there is growing awareness on the part of businesses and executives in Kenya to address these problems head on, or is
I
that
think
still a
there is.
challenge?
I think there is a growing awareness, but there's still the challenge of the lack of resources, lack of budget to cater for cybersecurity needs, especially for small and medium enterprises. But there's still a ways to go, especially for these big organizations that have only started to embrace the need for cybersecurity experts within their organizations. The one company that has been able to achieve a little bit of cybersecurity within the workplace is Safaricom, and they started a bug bounty program that supports local talent in terms of
Oh,
supporting ethical hackers in Kenya try and get bugs in Safaricom systems, and then they get, of course, paid for it. But there's still a ways to go because a lot of
yeah.
organizations, as much as there's awareness, there's a lack of proper budgeting to cater for cybersecurity within the organizations. Yeah.
Now, do you, Laura, face a personal risk because you are promoting women and their movement and their career success in Kenya. Uh, and I only say that because we get a lot of news over here, and a lot of it is not positive, but that's the case all over the world. Uh, but at a personal level, do you face any security challenges because of She Hacks KE?
Not at all. I do not face any not yet. But yeah, as today, I do not face any challenges because of the work I do with She Hacks. But the one thing that I'd say is true is that I face the same challenges or the same risks that other technology users face. I still
Okay.
can be a target of malware. I still have to take care of my passwords just as everybody else. I can still be a victim of phishing scams. So those are the personal threats that I face, but nothing specific or nothing that is inspired or motivated by my work at SheHacks.
See, that is so good to hear because I know a lot of our listeners, the news that we get here in the United States is often skewed, and I'm sure very negative in many ways. And it's good to have somebody come on and dispel some of these myths, if you will,
Yes,
that
I
might
think
be
the
happening.
people, yeah, the people who are at risk are the people I work with, and or the people I have worked with in the past. The ones I told you, like the journalists and the civil societies I've worked with, the human rights organizations, they can be targets of attack. But for me, I haven't faced any threats because of my work as an ethical hacker or the work I do with She Hacks.
Fantastic. By the way, I'm curious in terms of statistics or numbers. Do you have any thing that you can share with our audience on the number of women you've helped get into She Hacks KE has helped get into cybersecurity? How many people have gone through the programs that you folks are doing?
Yeah, so currently we have close to 400 members, and these are mostly women, but we also have men in the team. And the reason for this is because cybersecurity is a very young field, and you get that only a few institutions in the country offer cybersecurity in schools, in classes, in colleges. And so we are trying to get women into the space, but we're also trying to get students. So our goal is to build a younger generation of women in cybersecurity, but also a skilled generation of cybersecurity practitioners, regardless of gender. But of course, we do have a bias for women, and currently we are close to 400 members.
That's fantastic. That's and
Yeah.
growing, and you've grown to other
Yeah.
nations. So uh,
Yes.
th- that's absolutely fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about ransomware, changing topics. I'm sure
Hmm.
you you illuminated us a little bit about the vulnerabilities that are present and things that you face. But from a ransomware perspective, do you see any potential changes in the way Kenyan society is addressing that, or is it not as big a deal with Kenyan companies right now from a ransomware perspective?
Well, the problem we have is organizations fear, or there's this culture of you see a cyber attack as something that shouldn't happen to you. So there's taboo when it comes to talking about the threats that these organizations face. But I remember a few years ago when WannaCry was big and it was global, we had a number of
Yeah.
organizations that were victims of the ransomware, but they were trying to keep it to sweep it under the rug. So they didn't want people to know that they have been targets of such attacks. And so you get that this is also true for currently, it's also true for organizations whereby they might be victims of ransomware attacks, but they'll try and keep it under wraps and try and keep that information from the public because they see it as If they reveal this information that they've been victims of ransomware, then they're going to lose customers, they're going to lose business. And this is why we are trying to start conversations with organizations about the need for cybersecurity and the need to disclose. When something like that happens, talk to people like us, people in the industry, and we're going to try and look for solutions for you. But yes, as you mentioned, there is going to be a lot of attacks, ransomware attacks specifically on organizations, mostly targeting small and medium enterprises as well in the country. And so we are on the lookout for that. We're trying to start conversation around that as well.
Yeah, and you were saying they're the most vulnerable organizations, the
Yes.
small and medium enterprises in Kenya. So, and they're probably going to need the most help because, unlike big banks, they actually don't have the resources to address this issue.
Exactly. Yes.
But from a disclosure perspective, you mentioned there's a hesitancy. Is there something at the national level? Are there laws being implemented that require mandatory disclosures of certain data losses?
Not that I know of. We have tried to have conversation with different stakeholders in terms of coming up with policies that protect data and protect businesses. But this is still a work in progress. We're trying to get as many people as possible to start conversations around that so that we can reach the relevant people, the Ministry of ICT, and other key players in the policy making world, and we're trying to get them to come up with solutions that can help these businesses, especially because there's a rising number of SMEs in the country.
So, Laura, what do you think needs to be done from your perspective to provide better defense in depth to organizations then? What are some summary things that you can mention
Um,
that you think need to happen in your
yes.
nation?
So I think the very first thing would be awareness, both on a nationwide platform and also within organizations. Because, as I said, security most of the time is an afterthought for organizations. And so you end up having technologies, but then something happens, you have a data breach, you have an attack, and you do not know how to handle it. So I think there has to be awareness in terms of training, in terms of proper policies, written policies for organizations to use whenever they are, let's say, a target of an attack. They will have a policy written down on what to do in case such thing happens. And also there has to be awareness in terms of, as I said, training where employees must attend mandatory digital security classes. Now, this will eliminate
Right.
problems such as attacks that comes with human error, the information you share, password management, and all these other small, basic cybersecurity things that can make a lot of difference if you do not follow them.
Yeah. I, I think there's a lot of similarities to the US in that regard. And I'm really glad to mention employee training. I think a lot of times, we've talked about this many a times on the show, where employees are often uh, just given policy mandates, but they're not educated. So educating them, I think, can have
Yeah.
a major impact on them following policies, if you will. That that's
Yes.
so.
And
Laura, I
also
wanted to take
besides policies, I think the one
the
thing that
last
people
couple
should look at is having a budget for cybersecurity. A lot of the problems we face or organizations face come about as a result of, say, for example, using unlicensed softwares. Now, if uh, these softwares, you know that most of the times they don't come with patches, and so you end up getting bugs and giving it or letting this unlicensed software have create vulnerabilities within your organizations where attackers can use the softwares to breach your data and to do or to facilitate other types of attacks. Now, the one, as I mentioned, besides awareness, there also has to be a budget for cybersecurity, and we're not asking for people to, especially for small organizations that are struggling financially or they're trying to get on their feet. We're not asking them to like hire a pen tester, which can be expensive, but just analyze their infrastructure. They can do that for themselves, counting the number of IP addresses they have, looking at their network, looking at their communication as well. How do they communicate? What secure platforms do they use to communicate? So all these small things that can add a lot of or can decide whether you are secure or not. So we are trying to get organizations to look at security as something that is mandatory, as something that is important, and not um, to put that as an afterthought. So we're trying to get more conversation around this.
Fantastic. Well, Laura, we are at the hour here. I
Yeah.
wanted to take the last couple minutes and give you an opportunity to talk about anything, any events that you're doing, anything that you'd like to, any links you want to share, anything that you want us to put in the show notes, whatever you'd like to promote. It's your platform. Please go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Manoj. I think the one thing I would want people to know is we still need more support in terms of training in SheHacks Kenya. So, as I mentioned, we have boot camps on a weekly basis, even twice a week. So, if anyone wants to speak about anything, please do reach out to us on our Twitter, SheHacks_KE, which is SheHacks Kenya, and yeah, LinkedIn as well, SheHacks Kenya, and just come and join us, join our training, and facilitate our training if you can.
Fantastic. And we'll put all those links in the show notes, Laura. So,
Thanks, Manoj.
and we'll make, yeah, and we'll make sure that on our Twitter feed we put those links as well, so
All
it
right.
reaches a much broader audience. So,
Okay.
Laura, again, thank you so much for taking time in your day to do this, and appreciate all the knowledge you shared, and for being patient with us in doing this cross continent collaboration, if you will.
Thank you so much, Manoj. It's been fun.